I've mentioned before in class that I see a Jungian therapist, and have for about 6 years, 8 years, I don't know. She's like one of the greatest gifts in my life. She is so connected to the spiritual path, and she is really the only person I can talk to where I can see the larger drama, if you will, of my spiritual life. I think probably just my saying this will mean that half of my students will leave, because they go, why do I want a teacher who's got a therapist? Even though I've said it before, I think it was hard for me originally to think of having a therapist, because I thought, well, spiritual life should give you all the answers. Sitting still and sitting quiet with yourself should provide you with everything you want to know. And I wish that that were true for me. It may be true for others. But as much as it provided, as much as stillness provided, and as much as I have had insights that are rather remarkable into what it means to be, being able to verbalize it and express it to another person who had a kind of external clarity was really important to me. I remember when I told her that I had awakened after my experiences in North Carolina, and I said, well, I think I must be done with therapy. What more is there to say? And she said, well, you're still here. And that proved to be very important and prophetic on some level, because that's true. Something is still here. Call it a body, call it a personality, call it ego, call it anything you want. But it definitely has a ride to continue. You don't awaken necessarily. I'm talking for me, let me not talk for the masses of people who have awakened, or the few people who have awakened. But for me, the journey has been whole aspects of what Bruce is really truly fell away in that awakening. And other stuff, the detritus, if you will, of that personality still was there and had to be dealt with, and still has to be dealt with. And part of what fell away so quickly for me was my career, with absolutely no sense of loss. I mean, it was like taking a resume page and tossing it out of the folder. But it was a big part. It was a big part, but it was not all of who I am. A funny thing that fell away from me in my awakening was my spiritual life, which seems odd, but I honestly had no more interest in my spiritual life. It hasn't, as you can tell, evaporated, but it doesn't define who I am. As I've described many times in these talks, for most people, I think a spiritual life is about getting somewhere else, and that no longer is of interest to me. The real work for me is being where I am. And I believe it's the real work for everybody. I think most people are desperate to get somewhere else, because somewhere else isn't quite as uncomfortable, supposedly, as right here. But if you're in a body, and you're in a mind, and you're in some kind of manifested form, you are going to experience all of what that means, and much of that is uncomfortable. So if you're seeking a permanent state of comfort, you're not going to find it spiritually. You'll have to find other approaches. I mean, our society in many ways is a society seeking pain relief. And you can see where that gets us. It's really accepting pain as part of the process that allows you to find the harmony and balance that you're really looking for, the wholeness. One of the reasons I sought out a therapist was because I was in a kind of war zone over what to do about living in two places, Los Angeles and New York, and feeling pulled, in my mind, to maintain a life in Los Angeles, which is where my career was at that point, where my family was, where a lot of the juice in my life existed. My life here was very much a reclusive life, which I also liked. And it was full of aesthetic beauty. The beauty of this particular property is probably, as in my mind, ideal a place as I could find for what I would want to achieve in this lifetime. Blanche loves and has always loved this property. I love it, but if I had to pick one, I would have picked Los Angeles, which I called home. This was my house, Los Angeles was my home. Blanche and I could not agree on where to live, and it was starting to be stressful because keeping both very substantial properties going was hard. It was just hard financially. I had to write movies at that point that I didn't want to write just to kind of make sure we could keep all of this afloat. So I was kind of angry about it, and I didn't know what choices to make. Well, all of you know where this has come to. We are days away from signing a contract selling this house. And arriving at that moment of saying yes to that has been a very potent, difficult experience. It really is letting go of a place that I have, and I described this recently, that I have allowed myself to completely fall in love with. And I have really allowed myself to fall in love with it because, as I've said before, I don't want to leave someplace I don't like, that I don't want. I don't want to leave it being angry at it or being resentful or feeling somehow that I didn't find a way to embrace what was. So I've embraced it completely. And the discomfort of that, now that I am leaving it behind, is enormous. And I have been waking up recently in the middle of the night with what I call a kind of gut level fear. And the voice that I hear in my head is, you are making the biggest mistake of your life. And that's not easy. And the alternative is tell the people who are buying this place that they can't have it, that I've decided to stay here, that I'm going to stay here knowing that it's going to cost me all of my savings ultimately, and that I will give up the West Coast, meaning my children, my family life, my home there. There's no way to have both. And so there's been another huge struggle going on inside me, and I mentioned all of this to my therapist last week. And she was deeply concerned about it. And she said, gut level reactions inside are really significant in a Jungian sense, and they represent a kind of struggle for survival at the most fundamental level. It usually is about life and death. That it is among the most powerful experiences a human being can have. And it's really essential to understand what that is, because it is so potent. And we had to really begin this process of digging into what do I do about this painful, painful choice? I was experiencing this grief, I mean really powerful grief. Leaving paradise is really what it feels like. And I just thought, how can I do it? And the more I thought about it, it became really interesting. I started putting myself into the place where I held on to this property and let go of LA. And what I experienced was a gut level feeling that I was making the biggest mistake of my life. No matter what I did, I was making the biggest mistake of my life. I couldn't win, either way. One way or another, something was really at odds, deeply, deeply divided inside me. And so my therapist thought I should throw an I Ching. I don't know if you all know about the I Ching from the 1960s where I first discovered it. It always spoke to me. It always told me a kind of inner truth that I couldn't get at mentally or spiritually. And so I threw the I Ching and I couldn't figure it out. And it was direct. It was like, it didn't have any changing lines, anything. It was just a statement. And I brought it to her attention. And she's, being a Jungian, Carl Jung wrote the introduction to the Evans Wentz I Ching. And she was brilliantly insightful. What we came up with, and it has spoken so truly to me, and I bring it up today because I think it will speak to everybody, is something in me is terrified of losing this place. And what is this place? What is this farmhouse that other people have called an estate, which I never imagined to be an estate? But when you have, 150 acres and a caretaker and assistant caretakers, I guess you could call it an estate. I don't know why I thought of it as the farmhouse. But it is a big operation, and it is a very big achievement in life to have found this place. And I've had a lot of successes, if you will, in this lifetime. And so losing this place seems to represent a loss of, you can call it status, but we try to understand what is it that underlies all that. And what we came up with, and it was so vivid for me, was the person who needed this place. And he is an 8-year-old kid standing in the bathroom of his house in Detroit, having just started getting fat, which was a big deal for me. I started putting on weight. And my body was turning into another body. And I was really upset by it. And I was not an athlete. I was not a guy's guy, kind of. And I really felt, how can I be a guy? How can I really be somebody who is appreciated by all the other people, all the other guys around me in school? How can I be strong? How can I basically be safe in the world? How can I find safety? And I needed to find a way to do that. Part of it for me was a very simple choice, and I think a lot of people have made it. I decided to be a nice guy. A nice guy is a safe position, because I'm not a guy who does battles because I wouldn't win them, but if I was nice, people wouldn't attack me. And that kind of proved to be the case. But I also needed to be someone with achievement. And I tried to find ways, even at that age, to be that. I became a writer, honestly, early on. I would read my stuff, and people go, "Oh, that's good," and I would feel, "Wow, I've got something I can do, even a talent." I tried theater. God knows why that would work for me, but it did. I got attention. I started to feel inside that I had to achieve a lot in order to be really protected in life. That I had to, in order to be a player with all the other guys in the world, I had to have big achievement. And so at 8 years old, I planned this life. At 8 years old, I planned this house. I planned my film career. I planned winning an Oscar. I planned having success financially. All of this stuff was in the mind of an 8-year-old kid, standing in a bathroom in front of the mirror looking at how fat I was and how I really got to figure out how to how to survive in this world. And the extraordinary thing is the will, the need, the demand, the insistence that I achieve this was so strong that here we are today having every one of those things arrived at. Everything. Everything I needed came into play. Does that always happen? I have no idea, but I will tell you, if you want it really hard and you start to work at it really young, you can build many of these things. Or at least life got out of the way and let me have what I was asking for. And now it's being taken away. Now the safety that I sought in achievement and in ownership, all of that stuff is being taken away. The 8-year-old in me is more terrified than I have ever known it to be. I didn't even know the 8-year-old was still working. But as I look at him and I stare at this kid who I, in a sense, really admire, I'm looking at him going, oh God, not now, don't do this to me. He is so frightened that he is losing his safety. My therapist said, we have to stop for a moment and celebrate your 8-year-old self. He really gave you a life. He really worked it out. He made this thing happen. He was an extraordinary player. He did all this stuff for himself, but for the person you are. And his work is done. But you have to say thank you, and you have to honor and acknowledge and celebrate his work, which I've been doing since that conversation. I've been walking around as my 8-year-old self, and I got to tell you, interesting character. You know, he really did work it through on many levels, but it's over. The 8-year-old self's journey is over, and it's being dismantled. I will be signing a contract this week, and as my hand signs my name, Bruce Joel Rubin, on this contract, I'm giving away the dream. I'm giving away the safety. I'm giving away expectation for the future. Everything that I know to be solid and real is going away. Not everything, because I'll be moving back to the West Coast, to home. But it's a home, interestingly, that Blanche really does not want as a home, which is very important, another discussion, but one that I really believe I have to let go of. Possibly moving up to Seattle with my son Josh and his wife Evan and Talia, to be there with them, maybe. I don't know where I'm going. The interpretation of the I Ching that my therapist did was, it was number 9 in the I Ching, and I forget the actual name, but it's something like the power of the small. But basically what it said was, in a way, you have to enter not knowing anything at this moment in life. That the thing you want, the thing that's waiting for you, can only be had by letting go of all that you knew. That you cannot know what you're moving toward, but the only way to get there is to let go of everything that you had. That made sense to me. I truly have no idea what's coming. You know, I'm letting go, among other things, of you guys. You know, I mean, that's a really painful loss. The love I feel sitting here with each of you is indescribable, unbelievably deep, extraordinarily connected. And it leaves each of you having to continue this practice on your own. I mean, I hope I'll see you again and be back and we'll have moments together, but it won't be what it was. So there's a big loss that's coming and a big gain, and I have no idea what the gain will be. I do know when the awakening took place and my career fell away and my spiritual life fell away, and I thought, I'm liberated from all that stuff, then all these other pains and discomforts started to happen, and I kept going, what is that? Why is it still there? And now I see the 8-year-old was hiding behind the curtain, you know? like the Wizard of Oz. He was hiding behind the curtain, running the show really as fast as he could, pulling levers, doing everything he could. Keep me safe, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I didn't even know he was there. Curtain parts, there he is, exposed, and being told, basically, get on that balloon, you're flying off to the unknown, as an 8-year-old. The power is gone, you are done, your job is finished, you're free, over. Well, I don't remember the wizard in The Wizard of Oz being all that excited about getting on that balloon and flying off and taking Dorothy home, but in the end, she got off, she jumped off the balloon, and Toto jumped off out of the basket, and he was all by himself. Whoop! Goodbye, goodbye. And that's sort of how I feel. The 8-year-old, bye, goodbye. I don't know where it's going. I have no idea where it's going. But I know there's less of me now than there ever was, and the loss of the 8-year-old is proving to be, I mean, it's still new in the game, but it's proving to be really significant change. So I'm telling you this private, intimate story because I hope it's starting to register for you guys. There's an 8-year-old in every one of you, in everybody. And today I was working with that child in you that is running your show. I mean, running it in a way that you would never even imagine, that basically programmed the whole thing. Somewhere in the age of 8, maybe 5, maybe 11, something in you determined the life you were going to live, and you're living it. Some little innocent character, knowing very little about life, but full of dreams. I'm going to be this, I want to be that. So it's either someone who's fulfilled or unfulfilled. Someone who is, you know, in many ways a tyrant. You know, I mean, I saw a lot of tyrants. This is how it should have been, this is what it would have been, this is da-da-da-da, all operating, and they're causing unbelievable conflict now in your later life. This voice is still there, it's still operating. And most of us are completely unaware of it. Completely. How could that be there? Others are very aware of it. We're aware of it, but we don't know what to do with it because it still has such power. And because, what do we have to confront it with? Well, two things really. One, I had therapy. This therapist was smart, insightful, went right to the core, and did everything therapy is supposed to do. She went to this place and said, this is it. This is what we're looking at, and exploded the tension of it. The other thing we do have is the spiritual stillness. The spiritual stillness finally does allow us to look at our true self and all of its aspects, all of its components, and dismantle them one after another. Could I have done this by myself without a therapist? Maybe. I think there are people who do. I just needed that in my toolbox. I needed somebody else to be there to help. But if Rudy had stayed around, you know, I would have had Rudy. You know, and that would have been very valuable to me because Rudy used to, he would dig right in there and just pull stuff out. But I don't have Rudy. All I had is me and this abstraction of self, which is real to me. I mean, it knows what to do, and especially knows what to do with you guys. I have to say, when I sit with you guys, this self knows what to do. I guess it knows what to do with me. It told me to go to a therapist. It actually said, get on the phone and find a Jungian therapist, which is, I went to the Yellow Pages, and it said Jungian therapist, not quite Rhinebeck, but right near here. And I thought, wow, the only one in the book. And it was really remarkable. Life is trying to give us the materials we need, to give us the stuff we need to break down the drama, to break down the character insufficiencies that we have, to break down the tyrants inside us, to break down the little girl or the little boy who didn't get what they want or got what they wanted and it wasn't what they wanted. You know, there's all of us are suffering. Forgive me, you may not be suffering, but we're all dealing with these aspects of ourself that are very old, very small, and mostly, I believe, unsatisfied. Because how do you find satisfaction in life? And you do find satisfaction, and there's a rare group of people who do, then you have to deal with the fact that whatever you achieved will be taken away. Everything you get is going to be given back. Everything. Literally everything. It will happen either at the last second of your life or somewhere like near the end. You know, for some people it comes early. They start taking it away. And there are two ways to react to that. One is with gratitude, and one is with pain. The whole idea of a Buddhist lifestyle, of a spiritual meditative lifestyle, of a practice, is that it has this one inherent powerful aspect, which is letting go, letting go, letting go. And it's hard. It's so hard. It really isn't hard, because all you have to do is jump off the diving board. But if you're like me, clinging to that board for dear life, every little movement of your finger off the board is really, really painful. Some people just go for it. I'm not one of those people. It's why I've had a spiritual life. That spiritual life has given me the ability, bit by bit by bit by bit, to let go, let go, let go, let go, let go. And at the very end, either you will do it with grace or not. You know, it's either, why me, God, or it's, thy will be done. And it's kind of what it comes down to. And all of life ends up in one syllable, either yes or no. That's how you end your life. You either go yes or no. And that will determine way beyond anything you can imagine. Yes or no. And how do you get to yes? How do you get to yes in your life? This is the journey. And if you practice it day after day after day, going yes, 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 thy will be done, thy will be done, you know, you find this thing in yourself that allows you to let the universe unfold. What does that do for you? It brings you an amazing life. It doesn't necessarily bring you an easy life. It doesn't necessarily bring you what you want. It brings you what God wants, what the universe wants. Thy will be done. You know, let go, let God. That's what it brings you. And the difference between living that life and living the life of no, or my way or the highway, the difference is enormous. It's enormous. Because the life of liberation, the life of laying down the burden of you, is a process of unfolding that's very much like a flower that unfolds in the sunlight. It's natural, it's beautiful, it's filled with nectar. It has this glorious quality of being, and it's that, or it's this rock-like form that isn't breathing. It's just locked in. You know, you can be in life this living, flowering thing, or you can be a stone. And it's kind of your choice in a way. I mean, I think a lot of people don't think they have a choice, but trust me, you have endless choice. It's the remarkable part of being human. And what's the choice? Yes, no. Yes, no. And now I'm watching Talia make that choice every day now. No, no, no. And it's really fascinating because she's defining a self with the power of no. And I can't wait for her to begin to discover the power of yes. And I feel the same way about each of you. The power of yes is what we're doing here. Sit down here in this class, in this meditation space, and just keep going, yes, yes, yes. And when you discover the rock-solid no in you, that's where you work from. You sit in that rock. And what's so amazing to me, because I sit in that rock with each one of you, the first thing I go to, the first thing that presents itself is the no. Because the yes is easy. I just go through that like, sand, you go, and then clay hits. And I come to the solidity of you. And what I do is I sit in that space with you, and I just bring yes to it. And I feel the movement. I feel the movement in the middle of the rock. I feel this deadness in you starting to move, to come alive, the little seed form starting to move through it. I just feel that. And that's my whole practice as a teacher, to go into the deadness in you and breathe life back into it. To breathe you back into yes. And some of you work with me and make it easy, and some of you are sitting there saying, no, 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 as I'm going, yes, yes, yes. I'm really trying to have the yes win. And it wins for everybody at some point in this class. And then I can't tell you how quickly people get out and go, but, and the but is the beginning of no. As soon as you go but, no starts. So, this has been an amazing journey for me. Having this place, having this 8-year-old Bruce manifest Bear Hollow Farm, having it as a gift to my wife, having it as a gift to all of you, having it as a gift to me, has been clearly one of the most remarkable things in my life. I have never known, and you've heard me say this 1,000 times, I've never known a place that is more beautiful, that is more where I want to be. And it's being taken away. And that is powerful. It's powerful. But I'm telling you, when I'm on my deathbed and the whole world, which I love beyond belief, is being taken away, I will be able to reference this. I will go, you can do this. You can let this go. You can let it all go. Because the promise, and I know this deep down inside me spiritually, the promise is paradise was never outside. It's always inside. Paradise is where you live. Paradise is the inner landscape. This is the outer form. You will always live in paradise. Some of you don't believe that. Some of you think, well, if I haven't manifested it in the world, how will I ever get there internally? Well, Christ on the cross told the two thieves lying nailed to the cross next to him, we will all be in heaven together at the end of this day. We'll all be in paradise. Well, if you're a thief nailed to a cross and you're given that promise, well, of course, every one of you has earned that paradise. That paradise is honestly where we live. And every so often when I sit in my spiritual practice, I know that I'm there. It doesn't come every time, but it comes enough. I know when I met Rudy, I sit in his class, and I would look in his eyes, and he would usually disappear, and then there would be clouds and sunlight, and then other figures would appear, Buddhas and masters of all kinds, and I would sit there going, and I would feel this bigness in myself, this expansion, this amazing wonder, and no, I was connected to that. And somehow Rudy was a doorway to that. He was the promise of that, and he's proven to be that. Rudy was the beginning of this transformation. He said, Bruce, I am reparenting you. I am your second mother and father. I am that which will give you a new life, which is exactly what he did, except underneath that there was still the 8-year-old. And he didn't touch the 8-year-old. That just got touched this last week. And that 8-year-old now is going to disappear. I don't know if he'll disappear. His job is done. Thank you. But onward, my gratitude to the 8-year-old, my gratitude to Rudy, my gratitude to each of you for being in this room and allowing this dialogue to occur. I don't know who will benefit from this particular piece of information today, but it needed to be said. And, this thing continues. And, I have no idea where it's headed. I have zero idea, which is a blessing. Anything anybody needs to ask or say? Okay. Oop.
I just want to know, Roshan, I went to a meeting yesterday, the one I went to, the fellowship, and when I shared what came to me to speak, and I try to keep it simple, which is one of the sayings, keep it simple, and that's what I work a lot at all the time, but what came out was, it is a one day at a time. What came out when I was sharing for everyone, to me, because it's to me, it's my own truth, whatever that is, it's one eternity at a time with each day.
Well, I mean, I think that's very important. I mean, the moment, I mean, this feels like an abstraction to say the moment is eternity, but it's truth. But each moment is eternity. And we are all living in eternity. And I will tell you, this is just as a simple reminder, if you want a technique to help you with the pain of letting go and the pain of fearing the future, don't look back and don't look forward. That's the technique. Don't look back at all because it's going to cause you pain. Don't look forward because it's going to cause you fear. Stay right here. And what happens when you stay right here, which is now no longer a meditative choice, it's an essential choice to get through your life. You live in the moment. And the moment doesn't participate in fear, and it doesn't participate in attachment. It just is. It really is endless. This moment is all there is, period. And it is infinite and eternal, and it is one with all there is. Knowing that is a deep release. It's a deep freedom. Those of you who are suffering because of what was and what will be, I'm telling you, stop it. Just bring yourself right here. The only thing that can pull you out of here is your mind. And if your mind is really unruly, if it's the mind of a 6-year-old tyrant or an 8-year-old movie producer, whatever it is, let it go. Just say, bye-bye. So long. Come back to this. It's hard, but that is your practice. That is the meditative practice, is sitting in this moment and feeling, if you will, the bliss of just being. That's what this is. That's the entirety of your meditation. Stop dredging up the past or letting it pull you into it, and don't worry about the future. It will take care of itself. It will be filled with this moment. Truly, it will be filled with the eternity of this moment. That's all it is. And if you can rest here, you truly can rest. I'm going to stop now. Thank you, guys.